Okay, yesterday we were learning about when to light the Chanukah candles. Okay, once the time for Chanukah candles comes, you're not supposed to do anything because we don't want you to get too absorbed in other things that you forget to light Chanukah candles. In addition to that, the mitzvah of Chanukah is really to do it as early as possible, as we'll soon discuss the various different reasons why. But the bottom line is, you're not supposed to eat a meal before Chanukah lights. A meal means 2 ounces of bread, 2 ounces of cake. Then you're not allowed to eat before candle lighting. According to many poskim, if you have somebody to remind you to light the Chanukah candles afterwards, you're allowed to. But ideally, when you're not allowed to do work, you're not allowed to even learn before, you're not allowed to sleep before Chanukah candles. Once the time for Chanukah candles comes, you have to light right away as soon as possible. Somebody wants to eat a snack, they could. Because a lot of times, the proper way of lighting Chanukah candles is that everybody in the home should be there. Because especially nowadays, it's not so much for the people in the street, Pesumei Nisa, it's also primarily for the people in the house. And we'll learn later, not today, but a lot of dinim about what happens if you come home very late and everybody is sleeping already. Can you still light Chanukah candles because nobody's there? So it says in halacha you have to wake somebody up to be able to make it with the bracha. If not, you have to do it without a bracha. What?
If you're waiting for someone to come for like 10 minutes, are you allowed to learn in the meantime?
You're not allowed to, it says in halacha you're not allowed to learn. If somebody will remind you that when the 10 minutes is up to go light the Chanukah candles, you could. But if there's, let's say, in shul, between Mincha and Ma'ariv, if there's a shir kavua, an established shir, then you're allowed to learn before candle lighting. What?
Are you not allowed to learn during candle lighting or after?
No. Before candle lighting. After candle lighting, we mentioned yesterday briefly, there's a very strong custom, it's a very powerful halacha custom. You're supposed to sit next to the candles for half an hour. And we mentioned, as the previous Rebbe said, to listen to the story the candles are telling. But really you're supposed to be there because you're not allowed to benefit from the Chanukah candles. One of the reasons why we have a shamus is, one of the reasons, in case you might be benefiting from the candles, say the room is dark and you have the Chanukah minhag, so at least you're benefiting from the shamus, not from the actual candles. Now, where should the menorah be put? There's a lot of different customs where the menorah should be put. In the time of the Gemara says, Pesach Bais Din b'bachutz. Years ago, the way that in Europe you have this also now, there was a public thoroughfare called Rosh Hashanah. Off the public thoroughfare were many various chatzerim, courtyards. Really, they had a mavoi, which was an alleyway, and off the alleyway were courtyards. Now, in the courtyard, there are a bunch of houses, usually worked like in a semicircle, with a big empty space in the middle that everybody of the courtyard used. Now, there was a door into the courtyard. That was the way it was set up that time. So, at the time of the Gemara, you had to light it on the door of the courtyard facing the street, not your house door. Because in the time of the Gemara, the primary purpose of publication of the miracle, Pesumei Nisa, was for the people in the street. That's what the Gemara says. Then the Gemara continues that what happened is Makom Sakana, the Greeks and the Romans made decrees in Allah to light Chanukah candles. So that says you can put it on your table, V'dayo, and it's also enough. So later, especially according to Chabad, so let's go back a second. So even today, there's two customs. One custom is to light it in the window, facing the street. Why? Because the people in the street should see the Chanukah menorah. Our custom, that's based on Kabbalah, is we light it inside the house, in a doorway opposite the mezuzah. Like we learned yesterday, the Gemara says you should be surrounded with mitzvahs. Which, by the way, is an interesting halacha. What happens if you're in a house where there's no mezuzah? You're in a place, an Airbnb, you're in a place, there's no mezuzahs, or you're not there 30 days or whatever. So then, because the Gemara says like this, by the way, it's interesting, the Gemara Shabbos, there's two opinions. One opinion said, the Gemara asks, where do you put the Chanukah menorah? One opinion says on the right side of the door. Another opinion says on the left side of the door. And the Gemara rules, you put it on the left. Why? You should have the mezuzah on the right and the Chanukah candles on the left, so you're surrounded with mitzvahs. So many Rishonim right. So based on that, what happens if there's no mezuzah? The Gemara says, why do you put it? Really, you should put it on the right. Why do you put it on the left? To be surrounded with mitzvahs, right and left, mezuzah and Chanukah. But if you don't have a mezuzah for whatever reason, so then, and that's the halacha in Poskim, that you light the menorah on the right side of the doorway. Not in the, what?
When you're looking from outside?
Opposite where the mezuzah should be. Whichever side the mezuzah which would be the right side. So then you, now, some people light it in the window. Our minhag is to light it in the house opposite the door. Now you have to be careful, obviously. If you have little kids that are running around and you're going to put it in the doorway, you might have, God forbid, a tipped over menorah with, God forbid, a fire. You have to make sure you're putting it in a safe place. If not, halacha says you put it on the table and make sure safety comes first. One second. Safety comes first, you make sure that you put it. But otherwise you put it. Now, how high, if you're putting in a doorway, how high should the Chanukah menorah be? So the Shemar says between 3 and 10 tefachim. Not lower than 3, preferably not more than 10. Now, again, a tefach is a little bit over 3 inches. So whatever it says in the halacha newsletter, I wrote exactly according to the Rabbi Chaim Noah, it's 9.5 inches to not lower than 9.5 inches, not higher than 31.5 inches. That's the proper thing. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean the menorah or the flame? Because you can have a very large menorah, like that one up there. If you have that menorah up there, it's a very beautiful, expensive menorah. But if you have such a menorah up there, all silver, pure silver. I know it has to be polished, but anyway. So poskim right that has to the flame, because what's the mitzvah? The mitzvah is the flame, not the menorah. So if you have a tall menorah, you could put it on the floor, because then the flames will be between not 3 tvachim and 10 tvachim. Some poskim right it's not respectful to put the menorah mamish on the floor, so you put something down under it. But again, between 3 tvachim and 10 tvachim, it should be where the flame is. But a lot of poskim right, they're not makpid in the 3 to the 10 nowadays, whatever it is. What?
You have a large doorway, and you want to put on the left side. How much is considered the left side? As long as it's halfway towards
halfway within a tefach of it, wherever. If you have a bunch of menorahs, like you have where are you going to put them? What?
How much is tefachim? 3 to 10?
3 tefachim will be 9.5 inches to 31.5 inches. A tefach it's an argument in halacha between 3 inches and 4 inches. So there's a lot of different shitas. What?
Since the mitzvah is on the flame, would you be yotze if you had a flat floor and you put the candles, not the candles themselves flat so they're all the same height? Or do you have to use a menorah? Is that a part of it?
You don't need a menorah. In fact, nowadays the yeshiva bachim have money. Not like when we grew up in yeshiva, who had money. So what guys used to do, they were very original. They didn't have money for a menorah. Okay, so what did they do? They took bottle caps, and they would, let's say, take 8 of them, fill them up with oil, put a little wick in there, and that's what they use for a menorah. It doesn't have to be a menorah. Now, there is a concept called hidden mitzvah. In halacha it says it's beautiful to have a silver menorah if possible. There's a beautification of the mitzvah. What you can't have, though, in halacha, and it's interesting because a lot of the modern artistic menorahs, Chanukah menorahs that they make today, they make them on different levels. That it says in halacha is not kosher. The candles have to be on the same level. Now, obviously, candles sometimes burn quicker than the next, but that's not an issue. When you light them, the candles have to be on the same level. So if you have one higher than the next, why is that? It's a simple reason. Because if you have different heights, so you don't know, is it one candelabra, is it different people light, in other words, if you have 3 candles on different levels, yeah, on the third night, people think, oh, maybe it's the first night, but 3 people are lighting it. You don't know. So, but it's actually not kosher if they're not on the same level. So you can't have these artistic menorahs that are not, what?
Can you make, if you have a short candle, long candle, can you mix it in the same menorah? The flame.
Yeah, because the candles, it's all, it's put in the same place, yeah.
Like the basic.
Yeah. I mean, it's nicer when they're all the same height, to start with at least. Okay, so that's, now, it's interesting. I told the story, the Rebbe was once walking, I told the story every year. The Rebbe was once walking home Friday night after Chanukah Licht. The Rebbe was walking back to 770 from Erev. And on the corner of Eastern Parkway in Brooklyn, there's a very famous apartment building called 706. 706. He used to live there. 706 Eastern Parkway. And there was an elderly chassid, a very prominent, he was the Rosh Hashiva, a very prominent chassid, that the Rebbe was walking, and he looks up, and he sees that this Rosh Hashiva lit the menorah in the window. He was like on the 4th floor, maybe 5th floor, whatever it was. He lit it in the window. So the next day at the Fabring, and the Rebbe Fabring, Shabbos Chanukah, so the Rebbe spoke a whole sikha, it's printed already in Kutei Sichos. The Rebbe spoke a whole sikha, why our custom is not to light it in the window, and the Rebbe said a number of things. I know it's getting late, but a few things he said. Number one, today, the Chanukah menorah that's put above 20 amis, which is, let's say, 30 feet, is not kosher. If you have a big outdoor public menorah, okay, standing on the ground, and it's more than 30, or exactly 32 feet high, it's not kosher. Why isn't it kosher? The Gemara says, higher than 20 amis, 20 cubits is not kosher. Why? Because when a person walks in the street and they're looking straight, their eyes can catch up to 20 amis. That's what the Gemara says. Over 20 amis, you don't see unless you look up. Okay? But 20 feet, by the way, means from the floor. If you're on the 10th floor and you light it in your apartment, it doesn't mean it's more than 20 amis high. From the floor of the place you're lighting it, therefore none of the public menorahs anywhere, the Chabad public menorahs anywhere in the world, are more than 32 feet, whatever, because then it's not kosher. You can make a bracha even on public lighting. So the Rebbe said, number one, if a guy's on the 5th floor of a building, why are you lighting in the window? That the people in the street should see it? They can't see it. And then the Rebbe said even more. Most of the menorahs, at least in those days, weren't like today's menorahs, but they had a back to it. The old menorahs used to have a back. So the Rebbe said it's even worse, because then the people in the house don't even see the flames, because it's blocked by the back of the menorah. So you're only lighting it for the people in the street, and they don't even see it because it's more than 20 amas high. Then the Rebbe said, and he smiled when he said it, that if a guy with a long white beard is going to bend over to light the menorah, he might catch his beard on fire. But the L'Poel, our minhag is that we don't light it in the window. We don't. Most people will go on the other side of town. Everybody's lighting in the windows. But in Chabad, we don't light it. It's based on Kabbalah. It should dafka be inside the house, dafka opposite the mezuzah, and between 3 and 10 tefachim.